Hello and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch Serman, and I am happy to have you join us here on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. This show is for people who are wanting to learn more about creating financial wellness. We're going to be looking at different life cycles, and we're going to explore them both financially and emotionally, because personal finances are usually not about the money. As hard as that sounds to believe, it's really more about the emotions associated with your finances. Also, the more we work on ourselves emotionally, the healthier we are emotionally, the better prepared we are to make sound financial decisions. Although we might be a little general in our discussion, we'd love to hear from you. So please help us make it more personal and more relevant. You can reach out to me on my website, lifecycle.financial. Again, that's lifecycle.financial. Or you can post your comments and questions on Facebook, YouTube, or anywhere else that you might be listening to this and going live. You know, heading off to school is exciting. It comes with chasing dreams and making friends and an often pricey tuition, along with that dreaded FAFSA form. So today, we wanted to explore a little bit more around FAFSA, saving money for college, especially those people going through a divorce or maybe are divorced and really don't know how to do this. We plan to have the show right before the annual FAFSA process started, which is usually October 1. But the government, without coming to me or to Vicki, I guess, decided they're going to change that to December. But with that said, I will say, I think sometimes that might actually make it a little bit more important and a little bit more relevant to listen to the show now. Because what that means is you're actually going to end up with a shorter period in which to fill out all these forms and go through the process. And I think also it gives you a little bit more time to prepare and gather anything that you need and think through the process. It's always nice to have you on, Vicki. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Hirsch. Glad to be here.
So, you know, as I've done every time, I think it's important people understand a little bit of your background because it shows not just the passion, but how did you come into doing it and really getting into the nuts and bolts to figure this all out? So share a little bit on your background, if you would.
Oh my gosh, where to begin? First, I'll say this. I went to Syracuse University for my MBA, and I went on a full ride graduate assistantship. They paid me $10,000 to go there. So, you know, that's kind of where it all begins. Anyway, I had a traditional career path. I was always focused on the financial side of things, so to speak. And then I'll give you the short story. And I got divorced. I was going through a divorce. And as I said, I'm a financial person. I was thinking about college for my children. I had actually spoken with an advisor once upon a time, and they're like, oh, you have years to go. You don't need to think about planning for college yet. And that was just the wrong answer for me. And it was, and then I became a certified divorce coach because, as we all know, the process is awful. Yeah. And I was helping people with their personal finances. And then clients started to say to me, now, how am I going to afford to send my kids to college? And really, my own kids were starting to get older, and it all came together. And if you don't know the right questions to ask, if you don't know the right places to look, you're not going to be able to save all the money there is to.
And I think there is such an unfamiliarity with this process in general. So they don't even know like what questions they should be asking to find out what questions to ask.
Right.
You know, and the schools. Right. And these schools all, you know, different schools work differently. It's not a one size fits all process, you know, and that actually brings up something I think is important. We throw around financial aid process, FAFSA. Can you just give a real quick overview on what is FAFSA and the whole financial aid process?
So FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. That form is used by every single college in the country. Hirsch and I, we've been talking about there's some schools outside of the country that even accept FAFSA. Obviously, you have to check into each one of those on your own.
Right.
Then there is also what's called the CSS profile. And that's another financial aid form that's administered by the College Board, which is the same organization that administers the SAT tests and AP exams. That is used by some colleges within the country. The colleges that require the CSS also require the FAFSA. Some colleges require just the FAFSA. And that actually plays a lot into strategically planning for divorce in college and saving money.
So that's probably a form so many people are not even familiar with, because we don't really throw around CSS form.
Right.
Everyone is really familiar with FAFSA. So really, again, coming back to every school is its own entity that has its own process. Getting familiar with that, knowing it, and knowing what is the difference. Like if I have two schools, one's just a FAFSA, one's both, what does that even mean? I think these are all questions you were saying earlier, like people don't even know what to ask. These are some of the things that obviously you can help people with, but they're not even sure, they don't even know these things exist to ask those questions. So I guess this leads to a kind of an obvious question, I guess. Are there any mistakes that people make that are common mistakes that result in increasing the out-of-pocket costs for the college, for a family?
One thing in general, filling out a FAFSA form. FAFSA forms do not look at your retirement accounts. And a lot of people mistakenly will include retirement accounts as part of their investments on a FAFSA form. So yeah, that definitely could boost your number much higher than it should be on FAFSA. CSS profile, though, does look at your retirement accounts. So let me just say that.
So even those two forms have different information, which is another piece that's so important. And you're right. I mean, when you look at people in their 40s and 50s as an example, those are often the ages that people are gearing up for college or maybe have kids in college. Your two biggest assets are your home and retirement accounts. So if you're adding potentially your biggest accounts to that form, it's going to skew in quite an adverse way, I would imagine, the outcome of what is awarded to you.
And same thing with your home. You don't report that on FAFSA, but you do report that on CSS profile. Any secondary properties you do report on FAFSA.
Interesting, right? So again, you can really do a disservice to yourself, I guess, if you want to call it a disservice. But I think, once again, the things I'm going to point out that are obvious, but I'm sure you've seen quite often. Make sure it's the right information. Don't, misspell your name. Don't put the wrong, social security or, things like that. I actually had a client once come to me and said, I don't understand. It's taking so long. I haven't opened the school. When they went into their FAFSA, they hadn't elected that school. So the kid, when they went through the process and you designate, they had put, I think 4 schools. I don't remember exactly. But their top choice school was not one of the ones that they had put down.
That happens so often because, first, let me say, you can now list up to 20 colleges on the FAFSA application. They did that with the FAFSA Simplification Act, so that you can list more schools now. But so often a kid will have, I'm making this up, a list of 10 schools, and then a month or two later, they decide to add another school and forget to go back and put it on FAFSA.
Wow. Yeah. And you're just not going to get an award at all unless you update that. So I think the first thing is, when we talk about any mistakes that people make, make sure that basic information is right. Then understand, I guess, really what are they asking for. And that's not an easy thing. I mean, it's easy for me to say it sitting here and talking to you, make sure you got the right information. But we are unfamiliar, as I said, with that process, and making sure we fill it out in the most optimal way to get the highest, award. Obviously, the highest award, it's not just that number that's given to us. It's how much is scholarship and need-based scholarships often versus how much are loans, because I'm making up a number here, $40,000 in your package, your award package can be very different depending on how much is loans and how much is scholarships that you don't have to pay back. How much is subsidized, how much is not subsidized, right?
Obviously, we all want to maximize the free money that we don't need to pay back.
Right. So would you do me a favor, touch on that a little bit? Like, what are the components of an award, and maybe a little bit on some of those differences?
So the awards are basically grants and scholarships, and they're basically the same thing. They're free money. Grants are typically more need-based, scholarships are more merit-based, but underlying, they're both free money, so they're great. Just to go back a little to FAFSA. So a lot of people ask me how FAFSA works. And let me just say, it goes to the government. The government will review, see if the family qualifies for a Pell Grant. Then the FAFSA gets sent to the different schools that you list. And then they consider you for a need-based award from the school. So it's not just you fill out FAFSA and the government decides or the school decides. It's like you get these two chances to get money and then additional money.
And then we have all the loans.
Right.
So you've got subsidized loans. And let's come back to the loans, I think, because...
And also work-study programs. So work-study programs and student loans are both considered financial aid, but they're not free money. They're just helping you afford the cost of college right now.
To bridge the gap, so to speak, if we can call it that.
Right. So the subsidized loans are need-based. With those loans, they do not accrue interest till after the student graduates from college. The unsubsidized loans, if you don't qualify for need, those loans start accruing interest right away. However, the student loans do come at a lower interest rate than the Parent Plus loans. So it's good to take them out before the Parent Plus loans.
Right. So here's something that a lot of my clients actually don't realize you can do, and they're somewhat surprised when I bring it up. You get your award package from your school, you're all excited, you open it up and you go, oh my gosh, I can't afford this. They don't know that you're able to appeal and ask for a different award, or, so to speak, up the award. Can you touch on that a little bit as well? Because you've helped some of my clients quite significantly in that area as well.
So there are two different things that we're possibly talking about here. So one is negotiating. So a quick story, my broken down water heater. I had to have a couple of people come in. They gave me estimates. Ultimately, I was going with the second guy. When I told the first guy, thank you, but no thank you, the first thing he said was, can I give you a better price? Schools are like that also. You can negotiate with schools. They may offer you a better price. So, just keep that in mind in terms of negotiating. The other thing is filing an appeal. And this could be because when you fill out a FAFSA application, you are using tax returns from, it's almost like 2 years ago. So for kids that are graduating in June 2025 from high school, they're going to be using tax returns from 2023 on their FAFSA. So much can have changed since 2023. Maybe there was a job loss. Maybe there was a separation or divorce. Maybe, somebody lost a spouse. Things happen. Maybe there are medical expenses. But life happens. And because of those changes, it's possible, it may be possible, every school is different, to file an appeal based on the change in household circumstances.
And I think, that's an important thing that people, as I said, a lot of my clients don't realize you can do that. Now, will that ever end up in lowering the award that was originally given, or is it kind of locked in at that? And
No. It'll never go lower than what they initially offered you.
Right. And again, I think it's very important people kind of understand that time frame. We're in 2024 applying for the 25-26 school year.
Right.
Well, I haven't filed my 2024 return. Nobody has, right? So if I'm filling it out now, the latest return I have is 23. And that's the gap, right? I mean, we're talking about an 18-month, potentially more gap in your financials that may help you or may be deemed as worthy if they're big changes that can get you more financial aid. And I think that's really the logic behind it, is that, closing the gap of information for 18 months, right? Am I getting that right?
Yes. And the the other thing is I always get the question, oh, well, we're on extension. My 23 tax return isn't available yet. It has to be. It's important to make sure to get that done to apply for FAFSA.
And just talking about that, it is the 17th. You have basically just under 1 month in order to get that extension filed. So if you do have an extension, it's October 15th. That is a very, very important date for avoiding any late penalties. You will still be any interest that's owed. But even more importantly, potentially, is you can't fill out your FAFSA forms, your CSS forms without them. So it becomes that much more important for you. So Vicki, I'm going to ask, before we go to a break, can you share just a little bit for people, how do they get in touch with you, whether it's a website, an email, whatever you want to share, just that they can find out more?
The website is www.collegefinancialprep.com, and can always click on the blue button, schedule a discovery call, or reach out by email at hello@collegefinancialprep.com.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about free seminars. We're going to talk about student loans. We've got a lot of stuff still to cover. And some of the resources just in general that Vicki offers are amazing. And people say to me all the time, I didn't realize that she had that when I've sent them to her. So we will be right back. I am Hirsch Serman. You can reach me at lifecycle.financial. Thanks. Hello and welcome back to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. I am Hirsch Serman, your host of the Financial Wellness Hour. Today we have Vicki Vollweiler, and we are talking about how to save money on college. Vicki is with College Financial Prep. I encourage everybody to go to her website, which is collegefinancialprep.com. I do want to run through some of the things that we spoke about, and I was writing them down in that break, which there's no way I can get it all down, but you shared a little bit about kind of the perfect storm of clients asking you, your kids needing this, and how you got into this and figuring it all out through the divorce, through everything that was going on in life, which is a difficult one to figure out from the beginning, I think, as well. We spoke a little bit about some of the mistakes, some of the obvious mistakes, just get your information right. Some of the mistakes, like the two examples you gave, are do not on the FAFSA, you do on the CSS, but on the FAFSA, do not put your retirement accounts and do not put your home information, your primary home, secondary maybe, because that will have sounds like a pretty significant adverse effect on what the award would be. Obviously, we want to increase your financial aid, decrease your out-of-pocket. As we know, costs have gone up significantly. You know, at one point, my son was looking at the university I went to. It literally went dorm all in when I was there, 12,100 to I think 68,000. Now it's more than 5 times what it was, and it's staggering, quite honestly. You shared a little bit about the process, the FAFSA. We spoke about appeals. We touched on married, divorced, separated. We're going to get more into that. Anything I'm missing? I think I got most of it. So,
I'm impressed.
It's a tough one, but I was, scribbling as quickly as I could. So, I mean, as I said, we still got quite a few things, but just building on the idea of people coming to you, they in different phases, so to speak. They might be a married couple, they might be divorced, they might be in the process. Many families who are applying for FAFSA and financial aid are going through the divorce process. It's not finalized. If you think about the average, I'm going to round it to about a year. At some point, if you have a kid in college, you're going to be in the middle of that process. So does it make a difference if the parents are separated or not divorced? It hasn't been finalized as they go through the financial aid process?
So it does make a difference. If separated parents are living in the same house, then they're filing just as a regular married couple. They need to have two separate residences, and that's true for FAFSA or CSS profile.
That's a big one.
Yes.
Okay. And if they are in separate homes, do both, and this is probably going to be, it depends on which one you're doing, do they both have to give their information, or can they kind of select which information or which spouse's information they want to give?
Well, this is kind of the part where it gets strategic in terms of the colleges that are being applied to, and what financial aid forms are requested, and who's going to be, asked to provide what information. So if it's a FAFSA only school, it's supposed to be the parent who provides more financial support for the child. That's not necessarily the parent who earns more. It's the one who's providing more support for the child. Now, last year, because last year was the first time that FAFSA changed, and it used to be automatically be by the custodial parent, and now they're saying no, it's the parent who provides more support. So last year, if you looked at the CSS profile, they were assuming that the custodial parent was the one who provided more support for the child. And it said it on the CSS profile. It didn't say that on FAFSA, but CSS was assuming that. So it was interesting. There's no, I haven't seen for this year, I haven't seen anything that says that there's going to be any additional guidelines out there, but that was what it was for last year. So
and you and I think it was 2 or 3 years ago already, had a conversation around define the support. Is child support considered? How do we break that up? How do we really measure that? And I'm not sure they ever gave any great guidance on that either, right?
Well, the infamous they, no, there's no great guidance on it. But if you make up an example, say $3,000, I'm making this up, obviously. Right. $3,000 a month is being spent to support your child every month, and one parent contributes only $1,000, and the other parent is paying the other $2,000. Then you know which parent is providing more support for the child.
Right. So again, another discussion point that might be worthy of a call to Vicki, because and these are subtle things that
I've helped clients actually break it all out, and let's
and I also think these are subtle kind of nuances that can make a real difference in that award and what's coming through, especially when on the need-based stuff. If you give the wrong, often it's a disparity in income, and if you give the wrong information, or if you give one parent's, I don't want to say the wrong, one parent's income versus another parent's income or their financial situation, it really can change the outcome. And I think that's important to remember.
Now, the other thing is, it also depends on the schools that the child is applying to, the student's applying to.
Right.
And I'm saying that because some schools require the CSS profile. And many of the schools that require the CSS profile are going to look for the information from both parents. Now, just imagine both parents are now remarried. They're going to be looking for 4 sets of income and assets. So, it's important to be strategic up front, when you're developing that college list.
So divorce can be emotionally charged. Sometimes they don't want to share that information. The spouse doesn't want to share the information. And it can be emotionally charged even after the divorce is final. So how do you work with couples who, whether they divorced or in the process and separated, how do you work with these couples to help them through the process?
Everything. So I'm actually meeting with, a couple later. And, each parent is very concerned about this, but I've made it clear. I am a neutral third party. I request financial information from each of them ahead of time that I do not share aloud with either parent. I am not divulging anything that nobody should know. Sometimes, one parent will say, oh yeah, it's fine that they know everything. No. You have to be the one. I'm not sharing information. we meet, I work with people all over the country. So whether it's in person, whether it's on Zoom, if I need additional information from one parent during our session, our shared session, I'll ask that parent to text it me just so it's not said aloud.
Right.
But I want to gather all of the information to be able to guide them appropriately what's going to be best to help them both save money on the cost of college.
So, and I like that so much, because especially if it's not amicable, they don't want that other party to know. But sometimes it could play into the negotiation, even if it is relatively amicable. Both parties are still negotiating for the best outcome. So being able to keep it so separate, I think, becomes very, very important. I mean, there could be a raise coming up, there could be a bonus, there could be whatever it is. And those are things that are so important that people understand, to be able to keep it separate and be able to have that neutral party. If they're sitting down and filling it out together, it's pretty obvious, as you fill it out. So I like that approach a lot. I think that's very, very important. I mentioned earlier about loans a little bit, just conceptually, because we've touched a little bit on them and the differences between subsidized and unsubsidized, etc. And again, there are government loans and there's non-government loans. All of these things can play in. But I think when it comes to loans, one of the things people need to be, and I'm asking more for confirmation and elaboration, but I find a lot of people get into student loans and they really don't know what they're signing or what the obligation is ultimately. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
I agree with you on that, unfortunately. I always, when I'm working with clients, I want to make sure that they are well informed throughout the process. And I mean, we'll even go through student loans and project what the monthly cost is going to be afterwards. But it's up to them. I'm not telling them whether they should take out loans or not. Or, right. Honestly, I like to sit down with them and try to help them find money that they can, put towards at least paying a little bit in cash just to keep the interest rates down. Not interest rates, but, the accruing interest down. I think it's a problem that many people just say, oh, well, we'll take out student loans. And they're not thinking about what necessarily happens after the child graduates. I mean, I've seen some articles in the news about, people took out these loans, and now I'm talking about private loans, and they co-signed a loan for their child, and the child skipped out on the loan and the parents responsible for it, and they can't retire because of it.
Right. Yeah. And I this is information from 2 to 3 years ago, but I remember reading an article and I was surprised when I read, we hear so much about mortgages and we hear the average, person is carrying so much in credit card debt in America, and student loans is actually the second largest debt category. It was then, it might have shifted a little bit, but it was then the second largest debt category in this country. I don't think we kind of realize quite how much is out there because it's not spoken about in the same way as credit card debt or anything like that.
We all, I think it's safe to say that we all as parents want to do the best for our children. Right. But when it comes to the cost of college, we also have to think about our own futures and our own retirement and, and managing, what's best for our children while also what's best for ourselves. And I know you said at the start of the show, money's emotion, money and emotions go hand in hand. And certainly when it comes to our kids, it's emotional.
And as you said, when you were telling your story about somebody came to you, years ahead of the time they were going to college. And if you've been diligent, especially, and you've been planning for years and all the rest, and then you get hijacked, your retirement gets hijacked because you didn't understand something. I mean, think about the impact that's playing out. So we've covered so many things that have, whether it's nuances, whether it's really getting to understand things, know what you're getting into before you get into it. Obviously, it's much easier to get in than get out. So I know that you have a free workshop coming up, which you do quite a few through the year. It's not like this is unique, but it's right before the season is opening for FAFSA. I recommend everybody join, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and also where can they learn more about it?
So the workshop is actually coming up this Thursday evening, September 19th. If somebody is watching this and interested after the fact, let me know, reach out. I could probably get you a recorded copy. It's on how to save money on the cost of college. We're going to be talking about, generating the college list, financial aid, the financial aid award letters, and negotiating and filing appeals, and student loans. It's a good intro to the entire process.
Great. And I do, as I said, I recommend that people go. I think it's so important. I think we can slip one more question in.
And for people to find it, to register, they could go on the website, collegefinancialprep.com/events, and you could register there.
All right. I encourage everybody to do that. Please do. And I'm going to slip one more in. As I said, we've spoken a little bit about how you keep things separate. You have a rich background because you have the CDC piece, that certified divorce coach. You have an MBA, and we're in the finance side. Can you talk a little bit about when people come to you? Like, how do they come to you? Well, they put a call in. Vicki, I heard about you, whether it's on the show, whether somebody referred you, whatever it is. How do you kind of set them up into your process, and how do you work a little bit differently maybe than other financial consultants?
Well, usually, because I do focus so much, not everybody is separated or divorced, but many are. And because of that, sometimes I'll have just one parent who comes to me to work, and consult on the college piece, because not every state requires both parents to be involved in college. Sometimes it's one parent calling on behalf of two, or they need to, convince their former partner to come in. I try to make things as easy and as comfortable for everyone involved. It's not an easy situation. Right. I get it. I've been there personally and professionally. So
I think just the sense of what you said earlier about how diligent you are on keeping the information separate, that you'll be in the middle of a conversation and ask for a text, just as an example. I think those are all important things for people to understand. Their privacy will be kept. The information, I should say, will be kept private and maintained. And I think that's comforting for people, because they don't want to share it. And going in and calling, and then you're going to ask stuff and you're like, I don't want to answer that. That's uncomfortable. They can know coming in that they're going to be well taken care of. Vicki, one more time, because we do need to wrap up. How can people get in touch with you, find out more information, and again, sign up for that website, the seminar through your website?
So on the website, www.collegefinancialprep.com, you can reach out by clicking blue button and scheduling a discovery call. Happy to speak with you for a little bit. Anyone that calls. And also, if you go to collegefinancialprep.com/events, and then can register for the workshop on Thursday night.
And I encourage everybody to do that. And there's other information on the website as well, which I encourage people to go look at as well. I do want to thank you. This is a hot topic for so many people. I think not only is it a hot topic, it's a topic people really don't know, and they get these forms, they fill them out to the best of their ability, and the best of their ability is not always what the school is looking for, unfortunately. And so I think you can get into a lot of trouble pretty easily and pretty quickly. So thank you for shedding light on keeping things separate, keeping your priorities, looking at the school. I mean, again, I'm not going to run through the whole list, but we definitely covered a tremendous amount of things for people to even just think about and prepare as they go into the process. So Vicki, thank you for that. I am Hirsch Serman, your host for the Financial Wellness Hour. Please reach out to me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. And I want to thank, as always, CC Schatz for helping it be such an easy conversation, make all the magic work behind the screen. And we will be posting this on my website. I'm sure that Vicki will be on hers so that people can review it. And please join us for my next show. And I hope you have a great week. Thanks for joining us.